For the most part, I would say Fiji is very safe. I never once was I ever stuck up or robbed or anything like that. But one thing that you will see over there is a lot of the homes, the private homes, they're fenced off. And they'll have a regular chain link fence. And then right at the top, there will be barbed wire. A lot of the homes and those gates will be locked. A lot of the homes will have bars over the windows because there is robberies do happen. Homes do get broken into. When I was serving in Lautoka, which is a city on the western side of the island, just right north of Nandi, me and my companion, we were coming home, and we saw someone in our compound trying to break into our flat, and we were able to scare him off. And this guy, I don't know how he did it, but he jumped the fence with the barbed wire and took off. There was another time in Lautoka also, we were proselyting. We were out, and someone had got robbed. I can't remember if it was a member or whatnot, but someone got robbed, and me and my companion, we don't do this, but we ran after the guy. We ran after him, and we lost track of him. We don't know what happened. He took a left, and we went right. But for the most part, the country is safe. Even when you're out in the middle of the sugarcane patch on a dirt road, you'll be safe. There might be a pack of wild dogs that might be roaming, which is, during my time, it was common. A pack of wild dogs, which is very scary. But but it's safe. It's safe. In the city, it's safe. In the country, it's safe. I would say in your flats, just make sure you lock everything up. If you can't lock your doors, if you have any kind of cabinets, put your personal belongings. Make sure you lock them up. If you have your nice fancy shoes that you brought from America, I would suggest you don't bring them. Or if you have some real nice sneakers, don't bring your Air Jordans. Don't, because the possibility that they might walk off, like anywhere else. Let me see. That's really it about crime and safety. You'll be safe. You really will be safe. Don't worry. You won't need a nightstick or anything, or mace or stun gun. You'll be fine. You'll be fine.
Let's see here. So it varies wherever you go. There's the main city of Suva, which actually has about 250,000 people, last I heard. So a large percentage of the population lives there, but I have never actually served in Suva. In Fiji, there's a lot of different lifestyles. A lot of where I served, they were farmers and didn't have much money to their name, but they had land, which they had inherited, and they'd go out with their machetes and they'd especially be planting the starches. Their starch crops are kind of like potatoes. They have dalo and cassava and vundi and a couple other things that's super important to their diet. They eat starches, and then they have either fresh greens or fish or something to go along with it. But the starch is what fills you up, gives you energy. So to get around, the buses are super cheap. A lot of where I went, it would cost you 70 Fijian cents to either get to town or go somewhere, which is like 40 American cents. So it's really cheap. You get on, they're super old and rickety and loud, and they bang all over the place, and there's no windows. And so if it's raining, you pull down these tarps from the sides and try to not get splashed by too much mud. There's taxis all over the place, but those are more expensive, and the people don't usually ride them too often unless they really need to. In Tuvalu, a lot of the people, there's not great farming there because it's just this little skinny island. It's only sand, so it's not that fertile. And a lot of the people either work at the government, or a lot of our members worked at the bank, the National Bank of Tuvalu. A lot of them had mopeds type scooters that they imported from Taiwan because they were cheap from Taiwan, and they'd be riding those all over the place. And the roads were so skinny, we only had one member that had a car, and the cars almost don't fit on the road. So people just ride around their scooters, and it's just a skinny road, and it's both places are super hot. I think Tuvalu is even hotter because it's more northern and closer to the equator. But you pretty much just sweat for 2 years, and you just accept it, and the fans you have in your apartments are what keep you going at nighttime. And but you get used to it and you really enjoy it. I loved when I first got there. Actually, it was wintertime in Fiji, which was summertime here in America. And I got there and it was still really hot to me. But all the Fijians were saying how cold they were, and they were holding on blankets and stuff. And it was probably at least 70 degrees, and they were cold, and I thought they were crazy. And then by the end of my mission, 2 years later, it was wintertime again, and I was sitting there holding blankets and stuff at night. And when I'd study in the morning, I'd still keep my blanket on me to try not to freeze, even though it was 75 degrees. I was so used to the temperature that it was still super cold to me. As elders, you wear skirts every day. They call it a suluvakatanga, and that's your dress. I didn't wear pants or socks for 2 years, and it was great. And some people think that's weird, but in the White Handbook it talks about professional conservative clothing is what you wear as missionaries, and that's what that is in Fiji. So a lot of the businessmen and stuff wear them every day, so you wear them every day. And if you ride a bike, good luck to you. I just had to wear bicycle shorts underneath if I did that, because I flashed too many people, I think. So crime and safety. I remember my first night in Fiji. I was going out with a missionary, and he was still pretty young too. But we were walking in the streets of Suva, and it's pretty run down, and it was dark, and we were by ourselves on this road, and we're walking. And if I was in America and it looked like that scene and it was that late at night, I would have been scared for my life. And in Fiji, I asked my companion I was with, I was like, hey, is this safe? Because I didn't feel safe at the time. He's like, this isn't America, Elder Brower. Like, this is way safer than America. And I was shocked. It kind of took me back. And we were walking, and we see this Fijian guy, and he looks scary and kind of rough in the nighttime. And we see him, and he says hi to us, and we say hi back, and we keep walking. And every person we saw would say hi to us as we walked down the road at the nighttime. And I don't know, it's a different place, a different world, but I've never felt safer than I did in Fiji. My parents would email and say, are you okay, and stuff, and said I feel a lot safer here than I do at home. So that's really nice. The safety's really good there. Wildlife-wise, there's not a lot of big animals or big game like we might imagine. There's no monkeys or like giraffes or anything running around. There's a ton of frogs, a lot of geckos that will just be everywhere and are everywhere. There's mongoose. Mongoose have killed a lot of like the bird population, I've heard also. So there's not a ton of beautiful exotic birds, because I guess a lot of them have been killed, and the frogs and all those are introduced also. So these introduced species have come in and killed a lot of what used to live in Fiji. The day-to-day life, depending on where you lived, it was really simple. And the men would go to work either on the farm or their day jobs. They would come home in the afternoon. A lot of them loved to play rugby in the evening. They would eat dinner together. They would hold their little lotu, or what they call their little church, in their house, where it's kind of like family home evening. So we'd imagine it in America as church members, where they'd get together and they'd either share a spiritual thought and have a prayer, and they'd go to sleep. And a lot of my areas didn't have electricity, so they'd be in bed by 7 or 8 in the evening. But they didn't have much money, they didn't have many materials, but they were happy. They had their family and they had God. They knew that everything was okay, and that's all they needed. So same in Tuvalu. They'd get up and go to work. They have Tuvalu, the biggest and widest part of land I heard is about 200 meters. Is the widest part of the island, and there's an airstrip there where the airplanes come in. And in the evenings, a plane only comes in either 2 or 3 times a week, Tuesday, Thursday, and maybe Saturday. So all the rest of the week, the airstrip's used for playing volleyball, and people sleep on it. There's no fences there. It's just right in the middle of the island, and you can cross it all the time. And it's just it's open and it's there. And you go to work, you play sports, you have your family, and you have God. That's all that matters. A little bit cultural difference just in their backgrounds, where they came from, and just the language difference too, because Tuvalu's a lot closer to Samoan and Tongan than it is to Fijian. So both my companions there were Samoan, and they had a little background speaking language more similar to Tuvaluan, but just learning their way of life too. It's pretty similar, but just learn their language, and same story with both of them. If you learn the language, they love you, and you unlock the key to their hearts, and they're willing to listen to your message because you were willing to go there and willing to learn their language and where they come from. So they really appreciate that. So Methodist was the first church to go to both of them. Fiji's a lot more open and has a lot of other churches, but it was only recently in Tuvalu where another church was actually allowed. The Methodist church in Tuvalu is called the Ecclesia Tuvalu, which is the Christian Church of Tuvalu, and it's the Methodist sect. And they were the Church of Tuvalu. They are the Church of Tuvalu, and no other church was allowed. And just recently, other churches have been allowed to go to the main island, and other outer islands, there's 9 islands there, and as missionaries, if we had gone to another outer island, we would have gotten kicked right off, because we weren't allowed to be there, we weren't allowed to proselyte there. So the Methodist Church is still incredibly strong in Tuvalu. The government and all of that is all intertwined with the Methodist Church. So it's a little bit harder in Tuvalu than it is in Fiji for the church. So
like within the city, particularly Suva, if you're on the south end or the east end of the island, typically you get a lot more rain there, like much more heavy rain there. And then you get a lot more sun and just direct heat in the north and the west part. So Suva itself is on the south end, and Nausori, the other larger town area there, they get quite a bit of rain. And during the wet season, what would be like December, like November through April or so is like the wetter season. You can have days where you'll go outside and the sun is shining and it's clear, and within an hour you're being downpoured on with a heavy rain, and you'll be drenched in seconds if you don't have your umbrella. And then after a few more minutes it'll turn back to sunny, and it'll just get really humid and muggy because it'll get really hot and evaporate all that water, but then it'll just dump rain again. And so it can be very on and off rain in that wet season. In the non-wet season, I mean, you're still likely to see rain once or twice a week. So it's lots of rain in that city area. We pretty much just carried an umbrella all the time, even if it was a sunny, bright day, clear sky, we took an umbrella with us. So you just never know. So weather was pretty fun like that. As far as in the city goes, I'm pretty sure mostly just the zone leaders and the assistants there have vehicles that they can drive. The rest are all walking or taking buses. The buses there, they're getting nicer and nicer, but there's still some of the buses that are just kind of a rugged bus, no windows, just like open sides, and you take those to get around your area. There also are taxis. They're pricier, and we normally only use those in emergencies where we really have to get back, otherwise we're going to be late, or if we're in a rush to get somewhere. And I don't know. I don't think they'd be as scary as any New York taxi or anything. So some drivers might be a little more scary to drive with, but that'd be the most transportation in that area, pretty much just walking and buses and taxis. Housing in the towns, most of the time you have, most of the buildings are cement. They're like large cement structures that'll have, 1 or 2, maybe 3 separate flats in them. That there'll be like the one owner that'll live in one of them and then rent out the other ones, and that's the most common housing situation in the towns, I think. Some of the ones in the main town can be really nice, some okay. I'm pretty sure most of the flats now have heated water in them for showers. It's like in a separate electric unit they have to install in each shower, but the mission, I think, put the effort into getting those in most flats. So that's like the general housing in the cities. That's the most part. Within the main cities too, though, there's a lot of areas that we kind of call them like squatter settlements, which are really just like they're the poorest of the poor. They find whatever scrap metal and wood they can, and they build pretty makeshift homes. And they will fight for any job that they can to just keep afloat. In the main town areas, there's a lot of jobs, but a lot of the poor people will sometimes be hunting for jobs a lot or doing cheaper labor stuff. As far as like occupations and wages go, they're generally pretty low. I'm pretty sure like the Fiji minimum wage is around like $2 an hour, and the Fijian dollar's about half of an American dollar. So like they'd only be making maybe $1 American dollar an hour working there, and depending on what jobs they had. So there's a wide variety. There's areas in Suva that are very wealthy, and you'll find very nice homes. And those would be like a lot of the time, like the wealthier business owners there in Fiji, or people from like Australia or New Zealand that are living here. And then you'll have a lot of mostly that middle area, the kind of basic concrete structured homes, and then you'll have those squatter settlements as far as the scale goes. And that'd be like the main town area, but again, that differs quite a bit outside of main town areas. Lots of stray dogs. Lots and lots of those stray dogs. Some that breed and you don't know how that even worked, because I mean, if you ever play Call of Duty Nazi Zombies and you've seen the Hellhounds, there's some dogs that look pretty much just like that. I mean, they're scary. They're just like hairless, splotchy, and pretty nasty. But I mean, there's still a lot of more normal looking dogs as well, and so I never had any major issue being attacked by dogs. For the most part, they're used to just being around crowds of people. I mean, there still are some homes that will have a dog, and you have to be more careful around those ones, but I do know some elders that were more aggressively attacked by dogs, but I don't think it's too common. As far as the town, that's like the main wildlife. Tons of birds and occasional cats maybe, but not a whole lot of wildlife in the main town areas. Shopping wise, there's like 4 or 5, maybe 6 main like market names that you'll find those markets in all the towns and all around. But they're, for the most part, pretty identical in terms of what they carry in prices. Some might, on occasion, be cheaper here and there, but they're pretty much identical. As far as when I was there, missionaries would be given about $150 of support every 2 weeks. And that'd be used for the shopping and stuff. Depending on the missionary, some are a little more thrifty than others, but I mean that 150 can get you through the 2 weeks if you're thrifty about it. It can be tricky sometimes if you want to eat more varieties and stuff, because some things will be more expensive. Again, a lot of missionaries ate a lot of noodles because they weren't so thrifty, and that's about all they could afford to do. I don't really know how to describe it too much. I mean, you can get things like milk. It tastes a little bit different than what you get here, but and it comes in a box and it's not refrigerated. It's like ultra superheated, and so as long as it's in that box and sealed, it stays good for a pretty long time actually. But I mean, that can be a little bit more pricey to buy that milk. You can get bread from the different bread shops, and jelly and peanut butter are a little more expensive, but I mean, if you're thrifty with how you use it, you can have peanut butter jelly sandwiches for quite a while and it'll last. Yeah, you just gotta be creative with food. I don't know, keep yourself entertained if you're not being fed by members. I ate lots of tuna as well. I love the canned tuna there. You come back here and I still haven't found a brand of tuna that I like in the US now. It all tastes like metal to me. But the tuna there is really good. Good one. Corned beef. Corned beef and breakfast crackers. Lots of corned beef there. I really enjoy corned beef. I would buy that frequently. And that's probably one thing that helped me put on a few pounds, but lots of rice. You can eat a lot of white rice. That's a good way to keep yourself filled for cheap. So that'd be the generals of shopping and food that I ate, and from what I observed, most missionaries ate. If you're in a certain couple select areas in Suva, they'll have access in their area to go shopping at cost you less, which is like kind of like a Costco type of thing where it's a lot of imported things from the US or Australia that you can find some pretty good stuff there. I was thrilled when I found Golden Puffs and Marshmallow Mateys and standard cold cereals. They don't really have cold cereal in Fiji. But if you could get to that store, oh man, it was pretty expensive. It'd be like $20 for one of those big bags, the value bags of the Golden Puffs or the different, like, I can't even think of the brand name right now. Whatever that brand is that makes those, and like the Marshmallow Mateys and those things. So if you're lucky you can get that, but not too many can. I started in Suva, was my first area, and so I was in a nicer, a little bit nicer of a flat. We were a flat tied to our landlord was a member family, and they were in our ward, and so that was really nice. And so, yeah, being in the city and serving in the city is very different than serving outside of the towns or cities. But then, like my second area, I went to a more farming area that was all had a lot of the Indian cane farms and things like that, but also had several villages around, and so we had a branch there. And so it was smaller and it was very different, and we had to do a lot more biking and a lot more widespread moving as opposed to the city area. Then my third area, I was living in like a smaller town area, but our area that we would mostly work in was up away in just a farming area, and it was a little more open and distant from modernized society, I guess. And then I also had the chance, I was a district leader there and got to do several exchanges with other areas in that district, which were just as out there as could be, clear out in the bush. I got the chance to help open an area in Nakawakawa and be part of the ceremony where we opened up that village for the missionaries, and so that was really cool. And then the missionaries there stay in a little bit more of a not as nice of a flat. I mean, it was built specifically for the missionaries, so a little wooden hut next to a member there, and they had to go bathe in the river, and just getting to their flat had to trek through a long walk of just muddy jungle. You'd almost have to take your sandals off at parts, and you'd be into mud up to your knees at a few points trying to get through it. So it was a really exciting jungly bush area there, and so I got to just have my fun experiencing that on exchanges and stuff. But then and then my last area, I was in closer to a bigger town area, but we worked even further up in the bush, and so it was really fun.